Okay, good afternoon. Any questions? Yes.
I still can't get my Ubuntu to work.
That's a statement.
Well, what do you want me to do for that?
Okay, well, you can talk to me afterwards.
Okay, talk to you after. Okay.
Yes.
I still have some problem about each, so we probably can talk later.
Yeah. Other questions? Questions that are not of a personal computer nature. Yes.
So, do you want us to add you as an admin?
You should add me as someone who can write to it, because I will be like putting your scores and stuff right in there, and I need to be able to do that. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. You had a question?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. If object-oriented programming is no longer the gold standard, what is it?
There is no one thing that is like the one and all.
It's all based on whatever usage case you need. Like.
Yeah. So let's, we'll be looking a little bit into what functional programming is and why it's sometimes useful, and how it can be kind of merged with object-oriented programming. But so the idea is that object-oriented programming is still big, but there was a time when people thought this is the end of history. We'll just follow this recipe, this formula, this methodology, and we'll never have to worry about it again. That's not true. Other questions? Yes. Yes, I just sent them out a few minutes ago. So anyone who has sent me a Git URL should have gotten an ad code. If not, I failed. Yes. Okay, then see me after class, and we'll straighten it out. Other questions? Yes.
So we would have had everything done, and choose as a collaborator, and then you send the ad code.
No, I didn't pay attention to that. If you sent me a Git URL, then I would have sent you an ad code.
I added you as a collaborator. I can write what you get.
Yeah, that's good. And if I got the Git URL, okay, let me say that like this: if you emailed me, if you sent me an email saying, to kai.horstman@sjsu.edu, if you yourself sent me an email, then I would have sent you an ad code. If you just sent me an invite through Git or Bitbucket, then I wouldn't have done that, because I get so much spam from Git and Bitbucket that I can't keep track. So if you relied on the invite system, please send me an email and to kai.horstman@sjsu.edu, and then I will this afternoon send you an ad code. That might have been the problem. Yeah.
Do we need to email you even if we don't need an ad code?
Yes. Okay. Good question. So, what if you're done with homework 1 and you're already registered in the course? You do need to email me, because honestly, I get so many invitations from Bitbucket and GitHub, I can't keep track of them all. But if you send me an email, then I'll get on the order of, I think that's 19 people who are currently registered. I can deal with 19 emails that are addressed to me, where in the subject line it says whatever it says, homework 1. Yes, absolutely. Email me, and I will email probably everyone on Sunday and who I haven't gotten anything from, and say, hey, I haven't gotten anything. I'm about to drop you from the course, and that would give you one more chance to straighten it out. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. All right. I forgot to put up a link for lesson 2. So if you click on the slides link for lesson 1. And change the 1 to 2, then it should work. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to change this to lecture 2, and I'll add the link during the break. All right. So I asked you on Monday to read a few sections in the book before class, and that's what I'm always going to do. I want to make sure that you read the book first, and then when we meet in class, that I'll talk about the things that are not so obvious from the reading, because I'm really adding no value by explaining to you something that you could perfectly well read. So, and what I'll do most class meetings when I have the time at least, is to start out the class with a couple of clicker questions. You're probably familiar with that from other courses, in particular popular and large lecture courses. The professor puts up a slide with 4 choices, A, B, C, D, and they either make you buy like a little device that you click, that's why it's called a clicker, or in this day and age there's some app that you put on your phone and you get to choose one of those. Here we're going to do it the low-tech way. I'm just going to put the question into Piazza and make a poll in Piazza, and then you just get to answer one of one of the choices. So we're going to test that in just a minute. So we'll do the clicker questions. I'll go quickly over the slides for section 2.1 and add a couple of comments, not very much because this was not a very difficult section. And then we're having today a fairly hefty lab where I want you to go through all of the boring mechanics of setting up projects just the right way and all that. And then we'll talk a little bit about what I wanted to have achieved in the lab so that we're all on the same page. So here is a typical clicker question. And so I'm going to be asking this on Piazza in just a sec. So what I'm doing is I go into Piazza, and you too should go into Piazza. Yeah, I know that. How the heck do I get into the class? Oh, I need to go to Q&A. Yeah, so if you have not yet registered for Piazza, now would be a really good time to do this.
We're both having issues.
So right now 19 people have, and that means not all if you have. Oh, come on.
I'm so busy trying to get this right.
All right, so now you should be seeing this poll here. So go ahead and answer. What I will do is make it so that I can see how many votes I've gotten. And so the other thing that you need to do at the same time is look at the question. And so this is a softball question. Here it is. Okay, soon enough, where it says a total of 0 votes should change into a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And there's one outside, 29 votes. So has anyone voted yet? Okay, why isn't it showing up?
Refresh page.
Yeah.
I mean, it's supposed to automatically.
It's supposed to it used to automatically
I
refresh.
think if you scroll down on your page.
No, yeah, but I don't want everyone to see how everyone voted and stuff. But what I can also do is I can do that on my phone.
It shows us who voted for what.
Yeah, we can already see it.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think it's supposed to be inside.
Oh,
Oh, that's probably true.
That's probably that, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would just reach out.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like maybe we didn't vote.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, let's. All right, so I have 21 votes, so I'll give it another minute. I have 22. So I'm being annoying right now just to make sure that everyone really does go into here. And from the next class, this will go really smoothly. Three. One more vote. One more. Oh, there's 5 slackers here. One of you give me a vote.
Hey,
Yeah?
I don't have access to PS, and I'm not a enrolled student.
That's fine. Anyone can log themselves into Piazza. Just enroll. Now I have 25. Yeah. So just enroll yourself. You can always unenroll yourself later if you decide not to join the class. There's no cost or no penalty to do that. All right. So where's our clicker question here? And so we got a large majority who chose 4, and so that's good. So that means that this large majority of people either guessed correctly or very quickly read through section 2.1 while we were doing all of this, or actually read it before class, right? So there's always hope that the latter was the case. Yeah, so there are whole books written on software developing methodologies that will go through what the various phases are that should be done at a particular time. And when you take a course in software engineering, such as CS 160, you're going to be spending a lecture or so going through several of these methodologies, and you'll see them in gory detail. So for this introduction into object-oriented design, I wanted to keep it as simple as possible, and so I just describe a process that's good enough for now. I mean, it's not good enough for industrial software development, but it's perfectly fine for a semester-long course. And so that process, which has no official name, it's just something that's used for this book, has an analysis phase, a design phase, and an implementation phase. And we'll go over that in a minute. So that process naively works under the assumption that when you have designed and implemented the software, that there's no particular testing to be done. Of course, a real software development process would have at least one phase that deals with testing. All right, so let's move on to question 2. Let's see, I should be able to clone this. No. So this should now move more quickly. did I not? No, I must have published it. And while you do that, I will set up question 3.
Are the questions posted somewhere? Or you just
Yes, they're in the slides. So and the way you get to the slides is you start with the starting page of the course. This thing here. And unfortunately I messed up today and I didn't put a link, so if you go to the link from Monday and change the 1 into a 2, then you can get to them. So I got 17 votes. All right. Question 2. So the majority of people said 2, and there's a smattering of 3. So 2 certainly is a correct answer. That the design phase, as it's described in the book, says absolutely nothing about packages. The packages are a useful mechanism for structuring software, but it just doesn't have anything particularly to say about it. Some people said that it doesn't say anything about methods, and that actually is also a correct answer, because it talks about responsibilities, and so you may know that a responsibility is usually then implemented as either one method or some set of related methods, but it doesn't specifically talk about it. So sometimes I will put in 2 answers that could both be correct, and then you get to choose whichever one you like better. And sometimes I put where there's no correct answer just to see what happens. Sometimes that happens by accident. So it's not, you're not getting a grade for how well you do it. It gives me an idea as to where things are confusing. What I actually strive for as we progress more in the course is I want to have a distribution where each choice gets about the same number of points. Then I know I've done a really poor job explaining it. All right, so now I want to know whether you read through that description of the voicemail system. And so I kind of hope that you did, because that's the kind of stuff that's really tedious to lecture about. And so, my expectation is you just kind of scanned over it, you got the basic idea, and then when I ask a question about it, then you could have a glance at the PDF file and figure out what the answer is. So let's give this one a try. And it's perfectly fine with me to, if you have that PDF file open and you look at it. I want you to have it. I want you to know where things are. There's no brownie points for memorization. All right, and so again, almost everyone agrees with what I believe was the correct solution. So there's nothing to be learned from here except, did you guys either have a look at it before or could you quickly scan it? So that just happens to be that it was, that when you play a message, then you get to delete the message that you just played. We'll talk about that in a minute. So thanks very much. So now I'll be moving on to going over some of the material a little bit. So when you go to the textbook link, there is a set of slides for each chapter. And I'm not repackaging them into the individual lessons. It's not worth it. And so I'll just go over very briefly of what I wanted to stress. So, like I said, there's this mini methodology that's in the book with 3 phases: analysis, design, and implementation. And we're going to be using as a case study this voicemail system. And I was wondering, should I change the voicemail system to something else? Because who uses voicemail these days? It's not that as common a thing as it used to be, but everyone still knows how voicemail works, right? You probably, once in a while do need I don't know. Actually, I must confess, I haven't listened to the voicemail on my phone for several years. I have Google Voice, right, and it just transcribes them. But, put yourself back in time. What's kind of nice about the voicemail system as it is that most of the systems that you build kind of naturally come with a user interface. And a voicemail system, because it's voice-driven, it doesn't. And as we'll see a little later when we learn a little bit of user interface programming, it's really easy to take out the text-based user interface and swap into a different one. Yes?
But wouldn't the audio feedback of the phone itself count as a user interface?
Sure, it is a user interface, right? But it's not one that we really know how to program. Like if you asked me to implement the voice stuff, I would have no idea. I'd have to learn that first. So we're going to be simulating it with text today and for the next couple of lessons as we go through it. And then later we're going to put a GUI interface over it, which is also a simulation. We're never going to get actually to the voice part. It would be an interesting thing to do sometime. But we'll learn something by swapping out the user interface about good design. So even though it's ancient, it does have its merits, and I've decided to stick with it for right now. So just in general, when you have some task that you need to solve, one starts out in a phase that's called the analysis phase, where what you're laying out is you want to understand what needs to be done without actually doing any implementation. And that turns out to be surprisingly difficult. A lot of times when you meet with clients and they think that they know what they want, they'll tell you high level what business problem they want to solve, but they are usually very bad in knowing what the details are, and there's a whole art in figuring out what it is that you really should be building. One way of doing that is to build them something and show it to them, and then they say, well, that's not what we meant. But that's expensive, right? So it's cheaper to try to figure out first what they want. And then what's the outcome of all of this analysis? And there is a viewable way is viewable way is then you say all of them. We want to understand what are the relationships, because relationships, as we know, are trouble. Diagrams are important because they stand the diagrams aren't everything. So the more really the classes, practicing that for quite a bit. In the notation phase, we now have a set of classes, kind of thing that we've learned in previous courses where someone says, design a class that does this and this and this, and then you come up with the exact signatures for all of the methods. You figure out what is the internal representation, and you implement all of that. And then you test those classes first in isolation, and then you put them together. One of the nice things about using classes is that it usually is fairly easy to test a class in isolation before throwing it together with a whole bunch of other classes. And we will see that, in fact, later in the lab on how the other kind of testing isn't all that attractive. All right, so that's the big picture of these three phases. For the rest of this chapter, we're going to be firmly in the design phase. So we're going to be talking about how do you get from a textual description of what you want to do to an actual set of classes. And that is it's not a very scientific process. It requires a lot of experience and judgment. And most people who come to it for the first time find it somewhat challenging, and also find the fact that it's not scientific somewhat unsatisfying. But one gets much better at it with experience. All right, so on to this voicemail system here. So I wanted to jump into the voicemail system so that we have something tangible to talk about when we go through all of the various pieces of machinery and notation. So, the way it's done is the simulation of a voicemail system. We use text for speaking, and there's a few things that we need to simulate, like pushing a button. That's done by just typing in the number and hitting enter. Then to hang up the phone is a special action, and that's done by typing the letter H. And at one point there's a cue for quitting. In Chapter 5, we're going to be slicing away that text-based user interface and put a GUI interface in there just to show that it can be easily done. And the reason it can be easily done is because, as you'll see, the thing was designed to separate as much as possible the user interface from the back end of the system. So I don't want to go boringly through these use cases. I just want to point out the notation. So a use case is simply you write out the script of what's happening. So there is a step, what the user of the system does, what the system does, what the user does, what the system does. And in this case, it's just a very simple sequence. Some of those sequences are a little bit more complex. Like here, you kind of have a loop where you see at the end it says continue with step 3. And that's fine. It's not really a programming language. It's still very much English. Now, one of the things that you want to achieve with a use case is one should be able to give a use case like this to someone who can't code and say, does this use case make sense? And so someone who's a domain expert who understands how our system should work, they could read through this and say, yeah, this is how a voicemail system should work. Or they might say, this is really weird for one reason or another. Maybe they might say, people don't want to delete messages. They always want to keep on messages or something. In this case, people probably do want to delete messages, and so this is a reasonable use case. But it often happens that one comes up with a set of use cases, gives them to someone who actually understands the system, and they say, for one or other business reason, it has to be done differently. So use cases should be formal enough that someone can say, this or that is false. And I'll come back to that aspect of falsifiability when we talk about design notation as well. It's an important thing. All right, then some use cases can have variations, and so there is a notation where you say variation, and then you list what those variations might be. We're not going to get into the details of use cases, but when you take a software engineering course, they will probably give you a specific notation for use cases that you should follow, and then you need to produce them. In this course, you are consumers of these use cases and not producers. All right, so that's where we are here. Now, when it comes to, now we'll come to the lab. So we're going to have frequent labs, not in every class, but in a lot of classes, where you're going to be working with a buddy. And you can work with anyone. who you feel there's some compatibility with. Particularly today, where not everyone has their computer set up, make it so that if your computer is not ready to be used for coding, then partner up with someone who is. But in general, you'll always have a buddy, and one of you in any particular day is the coder who codes, and the other one is the scribe who takes notes. And it's a good idea to switch once in a while. I suggest that you switch every time, except if a lab continues from what was previously, that may be easier not to switch or whatever. In the CS1, CS2 labs, they're very determined that you switch a lot. I leave that to your judgment. When is a good time to switch? You all want to code, I assume. Who wouldn't? And so be fair about doing that. So you submit your labs in your Git repo, and so if your Git repo isn't ready today, put them somewhere and put them in as soon as that's all working. And then I will, at the end of the semester, simply look who has put in either a lab report or meaning a scribe report, or who has put in some code on the coding side. And I won't actually look at the reports very much, and I might spot check a few to see that they are not nonsense. So you don't have to finish the lab. You do what you can in class. You submit what you have at the end of class, and that's your entire obligation. It's not something that you need to clean up later. It's not something that's graded other than that you do it. Yes?
So the coder submits the code and the scribe
Yes,
submits
exactly.
the
Just to keep it totally simple, right? So you don't have to exchange the report with each other. You don't have to exchange the code with each other. You can, of course, if there's something that's useful in there, and you just put it in your personal repo. At the end of the semester, I basically count how many directories do I see with some code or some report in there that are called lab whatever. And if one day you're sick and you can't make it, it's not going to make a difference. But I had it last semester. There were a few students who just blew off the whole thing, just never showed up, and then they lost some points in participation, which seems only fair. So people last semester found the labs beneficial. They enjoyed doing it, and they found that they learned a lot by going through them. Except, I guess, the ones who blew them off. So that's it. So it should be simple, not much ceremony to it. I will be walking around and seeing where people have difficulty. And about 15 minutes before the end of class, which doesn't give us a heck of a lot of time today, I will stop the clock and I will start talking about what I wanted to get out of the lab, maybe 10 minutes before today. All right, so you can read those instructions yourself. So I want to go through where you should put the reports, straightforward, where we're going to be working with the book code, and I want you to know where that code is. I want you to put it onto your local machine. I say it outright. When you get the book code, put it somewhere outside your CS151 directory. I do not want you to check in the book code into your personal Git repository. Because I already have it, right? I don't need it 31 times. And then once in a while there'll be something where you need to modify the book code. What you then do is you make a copy of it, put that copy into your lab directory. Only the coder needs to do that, not the scribe. And then you point Eclipse to it. And so there is a sheet here where I ask you to fire up Eclipse and make a new Java project. And there's one important point that I want to make, namely that when you make a new Java project, you should always first start with some existing code, and then you should know how to point Eclipse to that. You don't, like I've seen some people, they make like a new project in Eclipse, and they follow the defaults, which puts it in some workspace. And then they shovel laboriously by copying and pasting a set of files in there. And that has two disadvantages. One, it's tedious, and two, where the heck are those files? Are they inside the Git managed space? No, they're not. And then I've seen people who then take those files and shovel them back one by one into the Git managed space. And then when one of the files changes, then they do it again, except if they forget. So that's completely and utterly pointless. So you want to first have the files in your Git managed space, and then you point Eclipse to it and say, hey, these are the files that I want to work on. All right. And so that I just want you to build the mail system program and run it. And then if we have the time to do it, then we'll learn how to run from the command line. The chance that we won't get there, and then we'll do it next time. All right, let's get going. So it's always a painful phase with finding buddies. So each of you needs to find a buddy. I will leave the room because I cannot bear to watch it. And then when I come back in 2 or 3 minutes, yeah, everyone should be working with someone else.
So, yeah, I know. I can't use it. I don't have
Yeah.
I can use it later, I guess.
So I assume I'll be scribed and this is pretty much just all I do. Kind of, but not next. No, I'll do it. Is it like kind of, yeah, I kind of use something like that. Kind of like moving your look to you. Is it like glare on that?
Oh yeah, I got.
Are you getting? Oh, yeah. Or was it replaced?
Lowercase. CD space and the capital C. And then hit tab.
So where's the voicemail?
Okay. Hit up there.
So I guess in 5, you already have so 5 is the directory inside or outside? Yes, the directory.
Oh, wait.
And so then, question 7? Oh wait, I'm sorry, question 6. Where is the code for the voice system? That's in the, in the file chapter.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you figure it out?
Yeah.
That's good. That's fine. I mean, you're supposed to help each other. So if you can figure it out.
That's what it says, the file of chapter 2. Is that
There you go. I was just wondering because you have the design that
how do you know that it actually worked? There's no error message. Check it out.
Yeah, it doesn't give me an error. It doesn't say like this doesn't work.
So, do you go to Bitbucket?
I really wish I had.
Use Bitbucket because it has to be a private.
Oh, it's okay because I checked. Is that from a window? Is that from here? Yes. Oh, is it okay?
We have,
And I didn't have to install it. I guess machines just don't use it.
Oh, really? Okay.
I just had to set Bitbucket and then just do Git clone.
and then we had to link it with SSH, which, if you look on Piazza,
Should have like 2 folders now.
Professor like linked to a
Okay. Yeah. So you get from here. Yeah. So then go back.
what is inside the
Okay, so you got the
I don't know why it's showing. Move lab 1.
The book code.
And then move lab 1. So, let's see.
you can just write files with extension.
Install. So now you just have one folder. You can go in there. The Java or
Connection, I found it.
and then you'll be able to do git status. So you have it. Okay, then you can probably add lab 1 version lab 1. Okay, I got it.
If when you get to this point here with the book code, I made a mistake in the URL. You should use the HTTPS URL. So if you get an error that you couldn't clone it, do it like that.
So I need to create a media name or
What's that?
do I need to create a username or oh no. Usually I don't know why I didn't do it for you, but usually when you clone the directory, you have the choice of HTTPS or SSH. Yesterday I was asking for the password. I don't know why this yeah, if it does and you want to make a save and password, then you can just put use SSH and keep it cloned again. Okay. And then, so just you have to generate an SSH which if I do it again, does it actually create more CSS? Yeah, it'll make a new this code in the same repository. Okay. So after I do that, maybe you can go to it's not confusing, I would get rid of it. Okay. I probably could leave. Thank you so much.
Did you guys discuss this?
Yeah. That's thank you so much.
So sometimes it starts with a group, so that's why he's saying squiggly lines. Let's say it's other places, right? This stuff is not
Is there well, we created
At some point, it's like
is
but it's always.
And you already did the browse. You're a browser. You browse to the email directory.
Outside because we just
I guess he
I actually have it
So you had to install Eclipse a second time.
Oh, on the Mac, yeah, you need to install something.
And then install, I had to like install Java again. And I did that like on the terminal. Just creates everything here. We're done. Okay, what's the next step?
Build and run the program. No, here I don't know if this is hard type Q to click for that. Maybe it was the wrong one.
It should be called OODB3.
where in your where do you deploy it?
I use this one for
Should be like pretty
Yeah.
and then list. Oh wait, it says permissions now. Yeah, when it says it's SSH,
So you also
yeah, but I set up SSH already.
oh, so
Maybe there's, I'm gonna check this, but see if there's any issues.
Yeah, if you refresh the page, you'll see the HTTPS selected.
What page?
The web page. So if you refresh this page here, yes, because I'm way ahead of you. I already changed it, and I will change it on the other place as well.
I'm running again. Application to mailbox 14. So 14 now. Type a message coming up.
Change directory.
Oh, I mean, the drivers.
Right, change directory, so CD, and then CH02, then
I think so, yeah. Cool, okay.
right after this.
Dial mailbox 14 again. Read the message.
What do I find?
You can also play this up for whatever program attacking.
It's not going to be a problem. Yeah. So is the directory inside? It's outside. It's starting outside. Yeah. You might want to
So I did that already, and then it has what's about folders, so this is what's in there. And I guess you just put like 7 files in that Java.
Well, actually, you can leave it the same name. Simply change the name.
Following steps. Yeah, you can just go ahead. You don't have to copy that. It's just the page. Oh, just one person just you have to write it. I guess you put like 7 files with extensions and 1 file with .hash.
Okay, so that's the key.
I'm having close on things.
Maybe it's just anything else.
Well, that was as we can decide if we want to add like everything outside of 151. We want to but see now you need to make your changes. That's the second step. Bring up this. Yes.
What do you mean by how did the driver do that? Like how does he get out of app? Check files.
No, just what command was it?
Probably, yeah.
Well, its status doesn't do anything, right? It says it shows you something, but then yeah, whatever the command is. Okay. I just wanted you to reflect on what's
But it's lost.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry, I can't. When it says read,
I'm sorry?
it says something about read. I'm trying to find
So it says dial 14 is below.
Okay, I'm going to demo that in a minute.
Okay. I don't know where my freaking thing. Oh, here it is.
All right. So let me spend a few minutes to show how to do this because I wanted to say a few things. So stop doing what you're doing. It's, I'm guessing no one got to this page, right? That's fine. I will add that to next lab, but we will go to to the point where we run Eclipse because that's important to me that you see a particular thing, and I want everyone to see it. All right. So right now I'm going to have. I think I deleted last time, so let me make it a CS151 directory, just like you have. Inside there, I'll make a lab 2 directory. And then we'll copy this here. Just in case, if you haven't figured this out, you can, to paste something into a terminal, you can use Shift Insert, and if you don't have an insert key, you should be able to do Control Shift V. And there it is. Now, I don't want to do the Git stuff here. What I now want to do is I want to fire up Eclipse. If you have a virtual machine, I already installed Eclipse. So Eclipse comes with some workspace. You can just accept the default. There's nothing fatal here. Here it is. Obviously, I have a whole bunch of. So now make a new Java project. Find new Java. The important point that here is designed to write a project name and then it saves the project. I don't know it. Then what is a project with no file? I've been over and never once did I start out with, doesn't happen, right? So in real life what you have, like the file we just copied, and you want to say, I want to start, and so the way you do that is you boldly uncheck the used, and it totally baffles me why they even have that default location thing. So it's CS151, lab 2 mail, and now it nicely says that's the project name, that's fine with me, and then you can actually click on finish and everything is fine. So now here's my project, and because I didn't have packages, we're not really using packages in this class, it puts everything in here, and here we go. Okay, so that is super important that you can do that like in an exam. this is going to happen, right? In an exam, I'm going to give you a bunch of starter files. And so if you can quickly make a directory, toss the files into that directory, and then just tell Eclipse to start working there, I mean, that saves you valuable minutes in an exam. So for that reason alone. The other thing is, now when you look at the directory structure here, so it's in here. Then you notice that the Eclipse made here an extra directory .project and .class path. And all of this is inside my CS151 directory. This one here I didn't actually put into Git, but I will right now just to show that I can do it. So now you can see the .git stuff here, that's the Git database, the lab 2, it's all in the same place, and now when I push it, I will push the Eclipse project. So if you find yourself moving files back and forth between your Eclipse workspace and the Git stuff, you're doing it wrong. Last semester I didn't say that early enough, and a whole bunch of people did. It was painful for them, not for me, but it was painful for me to watch. So I want to make this point like super clear. Now let's just run this guy here. So run as Java application. So, and now the way it worked is you type some mailbox like 1, 4, and then a pound sign, and says you have reached this mailbox, please leave a message. And I think then you hang up. And then one is back here at this prompt, so we enter a mailbox now pretending to be the right person. And now I think I need to enter a password, and by default the password is the same as the number. And now it says enter 1 to listen to your messages, enter 1 to listen to the current message. Here is my message, and now I can just quit the program. And now it's done. I can tell that it's done because there used to be a red box somewhere to say that the process was running, and that has disappeared. Oh, and it says terminated here. Okay, so that's that. And we'll be picking up at this spot here next time, so you don't have to rush ahead and do any of this. I'll just shovel these into the next lab. So as soon as you can, push what you have. The key point here really is that I want everyone to have a sane and simple directory layout, right? Focus on directories. The other thing is, I realize that not everyone is all that adept by typing these commands here into the terminal. So I should say a couple of things for those of you who've never done this. First of all, you realize, of course, that when you type up arrow, you can get all the previous commands. And that is kind of useful because usually the commands that you type are similar to something that you typed before. The other thing that's worth noticing is that when you start typing and then you hit the tab key, it auto-completes as much as possible. So the tab key is your friend. And now I hit it again, and it auto-completed again. And in this case here, it gives me a bunch of choices. So if I now want to So use the tab key as much as you can, and pretty soon you'll find that you don't need to do very much typing at all. We've talked about copy and paste into the terminal. So with this terminal here, it tells you what the keyboard shortcuts are, and I think the one in Lubuntu does the same thing. If not, post a question on Piazza and I'll look it up. So the simple Control-C, Control-V commands don't work in the terminal. Why not?
Well, they work if your OS has like.
Oh, well, okay. In Mac OS, because you don't use Control for copy and paste, but you use whatever the cloverleaf thing, then it's not a problem. But in all Unix-based operating systems, Control-C terminates the running program, and so it's different than copy, and so they can't do both. So that's why they had to use like Control-Shift or whatever. Yes, Control-Shift-C and Control-Shift-V, or Control-Insert or Shift-Insert. And so every terminal is a little bit different. We'll need to find out what works for you. If you have trouble with the copying and pasting, then put a question on Piazza. It does work. The other thing that for beginners is always helpful is, at the same time, have a look at, use your typical file explorer here, and just have a look at what's been created. So here's my CS151 directory, and you can see, the lab2, the .git, the mail, and so on. And eventually, you will have in your mind that tree view as you're typing the commands, and it all becomes second nature. It does take, if you've never done it before, it does take everyone a little bit to get used to. All right, that's all I have. So as soon as all of your Git stuff works, push it up. Doesn't have to be this minute. Doesn't even have to be today. But the sooner the better. And you have homework due on Friday. Please send me an email with your Git URL so that I can actually find it, grade it, and then we have class again on Monday. Thank you.
We're just still going.
Just a second.
How do you get that?
Oh, it's trying.
You just search on